The message popped up just before midnight on a Tuesday. I was already in bed, half-heartedly scrolling through emails, when my phone screen flashed with Olivia's name. We hadn't spoken in 6 months. Not since she'd stormed into my apartment, demanding I co-sign a loan for her husband Noah's failing restaurant. I'd refused. She'd unleashed a torrent of accusations, ending with a slammed door that rattled the whole frame. "Hope you die alone, you pathetic loser. At least I have a family who loves me. You'll never be anything but a bitter, jealous failure." I read her words twice. Then, I simply placed my phone on the nightstand, switched off the lamp, and closed my eyes. My parents called at 3:18 a.m. I let it ring 4 times. No good news ever arrives at that hour, and I already knew this wouldn't be an exception. "Your sister's in the hospital," Mom's voice came through, a carefully practiced tremor in it. "She needs immediate surgery. The doctors say it's critical. We need $35,000 by morning, or they won't operate." I sat up slowly, dragging a hand through my hair. "Which hospital?" "That doesn't matter right now. We need you to wire the money. Your father and I don't have that kind of cash, and Olivia's insurance won't cover it. You're the only one who can help." "What happened to her?" "An accident. She fell down the stairs at home. Internal bleeding. The doctors say if we don't pay tonight, she could die by morning." My gaze drifted to my phone, Olivia's text from just 4 hours earlier still glowing faintly in the dark. "No," I said. "What?" Mom's voice cracked. "You can't be serious. This is your sister. Your only sister." "I'm very serious. I'm going back to sleep now. Good night." I hung up before she could respond. The phone rang again, instantly. I silenced it, plugged it into the charger, and pulled the covers back up. Sleep came surprisingly easy. Morning arrived with 73 missed calls and 42 text messages. I made coffee, savoring the quiet, before I even looked at them. The messages were a torrent: Mom's tearful pleas, Dad's icy anger, Noah's sprawling paragraphs about what a monster I was for letting his wife suffer. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had strong opinions about my character. An uncle I'd only ever seen at funerals twice told me I'd burn. I deleted every single one without a reply, then headed to work. My colleague, Sarah, noticed something was off during our morning meeting. I'd been staring at a spot on the conference room wall for 5 minutes while she discussed the Brennan account. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. "Family emergency," I told her. "They'll get over it." She didn't push, and I appreciated that. Sarah had met my family once, 3 years ago, at a company holiday party. Olivia had gotten drunk that night and loudly declared I was just jealous, always had been, because she was the pretty one, the fun one, the one who actually lived instead of hiding behind spreadsheets. Sarah had wisely suggested we leave early. At 2:30 p.m., my desk phone rang. Our receptionist, Chloe, transferred a call from someone claiming to be my mother. I picked up, more out of curiosity than anything else. "The hospital is threatening to discharge Olivia without the surgery," Mom said, no greeting, no preamble. "They're saying she can recover at home with pain medication and monitoring. Your father and I are trying to convince them how serious this is, but they won't listen unless we can guarantee payment." "Sounds like she'll be fine then," I said. "How can you be so cruel? This is your sister, lying in a hospital bed, suffering, and you won't even help her. The same sister who texted me last night hoping I'd die alone? That sister?" A long silence stretched between us. "She didn't mean that. She was upset. You know how she gets when she's emotional." "I do know. That's exactly why I'm not sending money. We raised you better than this. Your father is so disappointed. He can barely look at photos of you anymore." "Tell Dad I said hello," I replied, then hung up and blocked their number from the office line. That evening, a new wave of attacks began, this time on social media. Olivia had posted a rambling status about her heartless sister refusing to save her life, complete with a pale, tragic photo of herself in a hospital gown. The comments section exploded, strangers I'd never met piling on, calling me every name under the sun. Many tagged me directly, making sure I saw their outrage. I reported the post for harassment, then went to the gym. 3 days passed. The calls and messages tapered off as my family finally grasped I wouldn't engage. Olivia posted an update, claiming she was recovering at home, that God had blessed her with survival despite such a terrible sister, and that she'd never forget who abandoned her. I bought new running shoes and extended my morning jog. 2 weeks later, the truth began to surface, delivered by my aunt, Eleanor. Mom's younger sister, she'd always kept the rest of the family at arm's length. She called from an unfamiliar number, and I answered, thinking it was work. "I need to tell you something about Olivia's hospital visit," Eleanor said, without greeting. "Your parents are lying to you. The whole thing was staged." I pulled my car into a grocery store parking lot. "Staged how?" "Olivia went to the emergency room with chest pains. They ran tests, found nothing serious, gave her some anxiety medication, and sent her home after 6 hours. The bill was $800. Your mother decided to turn it into this elaborate scheme to get money from you because Olivia and Noah are 3 months behind on their mortgage." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "How do you know this?" "Noah got drunk at a barbecue last weekend and started bragging about it. Said they almost got $35,000 out of you, but you were too stubborn to care if your own sister died. He thought it was hilarious they even tried. Your mother was furious he spoke, but several people heard. I figured you deserved to know what they're really like." "Why are you telling me?" "Because I've watched your mother manipulate people my whole life, and I'm tired of staying quiet. She did the same thing to me 10 years ago. Claimed she needed money for emergency surgery that turned out to be elective cosmetic work. I gave her $12,000 I never saw again. You were smart to say no." We talked for another 20 minutes. Eleanor confirmed details I'd long suspected but never wanted to truly acknowledge: how Mom always favored Olivia, how she convinced Dad I was difficult, ungrateful. How Olivia had learned to weaponize their favoritism into a lifetime of getting whatever she wanted, while I was always the responsible one, asking for nothing. I thanked Eleanor for the call. I sat there in the parking lot for an hour, watching people load groceries, wondering how many of them had families who would fake medical emergencies for money. The next move came from an unexpected direction. My father appeared at my office building on a Thursday afternoon, waiting in the lobby during my coffee break. Security called up, asking if I wanted them to remove him. I declined and went down to face him. Dad looked older, his hair completely gray since I'd last seen him 18 months ago. He stood when I approached, his face a mix of anger and exhaustion. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. Your mother is devastated. She cries every night because of what you've done to this family." I crossed my arms. "What I've done? I didn't use a medical emergency to extort money from anyone." His face reddened. Olivia was genuinely scared. She thought something was seriously wrong. Your mother was trying to help her get the best care possible by lying about needing $35,000 for a surgery that never happened. That's not helping, Dad. That's fraud. Don't talk to me about fraud. You've defrauded this family of basic human decency. Olivia needed support, and you abandoned her. Olivia needed $800 for an ER visit that found nothing wrong. She got anxiety medication and went home. Those are the facts, whether you want to acknowledge them or not. Dad stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've always been jealous of your sister. Always trying to make her look bad because she has what you don't. A husband, a family, people who actually care about her. Something cold settled deep in my chest. Is that what you really think? That I'm jealous? What else would explain this cruelty? Your own sister reaches out for help, and you turn your back. What kind of person does that? The kind who's tired of being treated like an ATM by people who've spent my entire life telling me I'm not good enough. I picked up my coffee cup from the lobby table. You should leave now. I have work to do. If you walk away right now, you're walking away from this family permanently. Your mother and I won't tolerate this disrespect any longer. I turned toward the elevator. You haven't tolerated me for years, Dad. This just makes it official. His voice followed me across the lobby. Don't come crying to us when you end up alone with nobody who cares whether you live or die. I pressed the elevator button, keeping my back to him until the doors opened. Several people in the lobby were staring. I didn't care. The doors closed on Dad's angry face, and I rode up to the 14th floor in silence. That night, I contacted a lawyer. Not because I planned legal action, but because I needed documentation. Attorney Adam Miller specialized in family law and had seen cases like mine before. He listened patiently, asked detailed questions about the timeline and evidence, and advised me to preserve everything: Olivia's original text, the call logs, Eleanor's testimony, the social media posts. You might need this if they escalate, Adam said. Some families don't know when to stop. What would escalation look like? Filing false police reports claiming you stole from them. Spreading defamatory statements. Showing up at your workplace repeatedly. Harassment campaigns. I've seen it all. I paid his retainer and left with a plan for protection. Things did get worse. Noah started calling my office directly, bypassing Chloe by claiming to be an urgent client. The first time, he reached my desk and spent 15 minutes screaming that I'd tried to end his wife's life through neglect. I hung up and reported his number. He simply called from different phones. The harassment spread to my professional network. Noah created fake LinkedIn profiles, sending messages to my colleagues and supervisor, claiming I'd stolen money from my ill sister, suggesting they reconsider employing someone with such questionable ethics. My boss, Laura, called me into her office after the third message. I know this is garbage, Laura said, showing me her phone. But I need you to make it stop. It's reflecting on the whole department. I showed her the documentation Adam helped me compile: screenshots, call logs, Eleanor's statements, medical records Eleanor had found that contradicted the emergency surgery story. Laura reviewed everything carefully. Do you want to press charges? I want them to leave me alone. If legal action accomplishes that, yes. Let me talk to corporate legal. We might be able to send a cease and desist on behalf of the company, since he's targeting you through work channels. 5 days later, the cease and desist letter arrived at Noah and Olivia's house, company letterhead, signed by 3 attorneys, promising swift legal action if the harassment continued. Adam sent his own letter that same day, documenting the fraud attempt and threatening civil action for defamation and emotional distress. Then, silence. A blissful, complete silence that lasted almost 3 weeks. I used that time to rebuild. The stress had cost me sleep, fractured my concentration at work, and left me constantly looking over my shoulder. Now, with legal protection and their communications blocked, I could finally breathe. Sarah became an unexpected ally. She invited me to her book club, a group of 6 women who met monthly at a downtown wine bar. I'd never been a joiner, always too busy, too tired, too worried about what my family might need next. But with that suffocating weight lifted, I found myself actually enjoying these evenings. The women in the group each had their own complicated family stories. Ashley had been disowned by her parents for marrying outside their religion 15 years ago. Brenda hadn't spoken to her brother in a decade after he'd stolen their grandmother's jewelry for gambling debts. Michelle's mother still called her fat every time they spoke, despite Michelle being a healthy marathon runner. We didn't dwell on dysfunction, but knowing these women understood made the occasional mentions easier. When I briefly explained why I'd cut off contact, no one gasped or tried to convince me family was everything. Ashley simply nodded. Good for you. That takes real courage. Work continued to improve. The Brennan account's success led to my team landing 2 more major clients, both needing our detailed analytical approach. I hired 2 junior analysts, spending weeks training them. One, a recent graduate named Ethan, reminded me, uncomfortably, of my younger self. Eager to please, apologetic for taking up space, constantly worried about being a burden. During our 3rd week, he apologized for the 5th time in an hour for asking clarifying questions. Ethan, stop, I said, setting down my pen. Questions are how we learn. You're not bothering me. It's my job to make sure you understand. I just don't want to waste your time. You're not wasting anything. Where did you learn that asking for help was a waste of someone's time? He shifted uncomfortably. My parents always said I needed to figure things out myself. That successful people don't need their hands held. I recognized that philosophy immediately. My parents had said similar things, usually right before praising Olivia for asking them to solve all her problems. The double standard was invisible to them, but glaringly obvious to me. Your parents were wrong, I told Ethan. Successful people ask questions, learn from experts, and build on existing knowledge. That's how progress happens. So ask me whatever you need to ask, and I'll let you know if I'm actually too busy. He nodded slowly. Over the next few months, I watched him blossom. He stopped apologizing, started contributing ideas, and became a genuinely skilled analyst. Watching his transformation felt oddly healing, like I was finally giving someone the encouragement I'd never received. The healing wasn't always straightforward, though. Small things could still trigger unexpected reactions. A colleague mentioning her sister helped her move into a new apartment, and I'd feel a sharp, nameless twist. A commercial showing a mother and daughter laughing while shopping, and I'd have to leave the room. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Emily Stone. Not because I thought I'd made the wrong decision, but because I wanted to process everything in a healthy way. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach I appreciated. You're grieving, she explained during our 4th session. Not for who they actually were, but for who you wish they could have been. That's a legitimate loss. I don't feel sad, I said. Mostly, I feel relieved. Grief isn't always sadness. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's just emptiness where a relationship should have been. All are valid responses to losing family, even when you're the one who chose to walk away. We talked about my childhood, the patterns I'd normalized because I didn't have a framework to see their dysfunction. How Olivia could crash her car 3 times in high school, and Dad just bought her a new one each time. But when I asked for help with college textbooks, Mom said I needed to learn financial responsibility. How holidays always revolved around what Olivia wanted, where she wanted to go, who she wanted to invite. How I'd learned to make myself small, undemanding, because needing things only led to disappointment. You trained yourself not to have needs, Dr. Stone said. That's a survival mechanism, but it's also a prison. You're allowed to want things. You're allowed to expect basic respect and consideration from the people in your life. The concept felt foreign, yet intriguing. I'd spent so long being the low-maintenance one, the person who never caused problems. Building a life where I actually expressed preferences and expectations meant rewiring decades of conditioning. I started small. Telling Sarah I didn't want to see a movie she suggested, instead of just agreeing. Letting Ethan know when I needed uninterrupted work time, instead of always being available. Ending a 3rd date with a guy who'd talked about himself the entire evening, instead of giving him another chance. Each small assertion of my boundaries felt terrifying and liberating, all at once. The book club met at Ashley's house for our October gathering. Her place was warm, welcoming, full of plants and comfortable furniture, lived in, not staged. We were discussing a memoir about family estrangement when Brenda asked directly how I was handling cutting off my family. Honestly? Better than I expected, I said. I kept waiting for this crushing guilt or regret, and it just never came. Mostly, I'm angry it took me so long. That's because you were trained to prioritize their feelings over your own, Michelle said. It takes time to unlearn that programming. Ashley refilled my wine glass. Have they tried contacting you since the legal letters? Not a word. I think they finally realized I meant it. Good, Brenda said, firmly. Some people only understand boundaries when there are consequences. We moved on to the book, but that conversation stayed with me. These women had become something my family never was, a genuine support system. They celebrated my successes without jealousy, offered help without strings, and respected my boundaries without making me feel guilty. This, I realized, was what healthy relationships looked like. Thanksgiving approached, my first holiday completely separate from my family of origin. The prospect should have felt lonely or sad. Instead, I found myself planning a Friendsgiving dinner with the book club women. We each brought dishes, ate too much, and spent the evening playing board games, sharing stories that had nothing to do with family obligation or guilt. Sarah pulled me aside while we were cleaning up. You know, you're glowing, right? I don't mean that in a cheesy way. You literally look healthier and happier than I've ever seen you. I feel it, I admitted. It's like I've been holding my breath for 34 years and finally exhaled. That's beautiful. I'm proud of you. What you did took real strength. Her words meant more than she could possibly know. My parents had never once said they were proud of me. Not when I graduated summa cum laude, or got promoted, or bought my first apartment. Olivia received praise for simply showing up, for trying, for merely existing. I received expectations, criticism, and the assumption that my accomplishments were just what I was supposed to do. Hearing someone acknowledge my strength and walking away felt like being seen for the very first time. December brought a complicated test. Eleanor called to say Olivia and Noah were definitely heading for their first divorce. Apparently, Olivia had found out Noah was having an affair with a hostess from his now-failed restaurant, and the fallout was spectacular. She's calling everyone for money to hire a better lawyer, Eleanor reported. Your father gave her $10,000. She's been posting on social media about betrayal and how family is supposed to support each other. Let me guess, she wants me to contribute too? Your mother already reached out to several cousins, claiming you'd want to help, but she didn't have your current number. I shut that down immediately, but I thought you should know what they're attempting. I thanked Eleanor for the warning and felt nothing but profound relief that I'd changed my number and blocked their access. The old me would have felt guilty, wondered if I should help, despite everything. The new me recognized the manipulation for what it was and went about my day, completely unbothered. Dr. Stone and I discussed it at my next session. How do you feel about your sister's divorce? I feel bad for her kids. They're the innocent victims. But Olivia chose Noah, chose to stay with him through his failures and schemes. Chose to participate in trying to defraud me. Her consequences aren't my responsibility. That's a healthy perspective. Are you worried she might escalate again? The legal protections are still in place. If she tries anything, Adam will handle it. I'm not going to live my life waiting for the next attack. Winter settled in, bringing shorter days and longer nights. I started evening painting classes at a community center, finally pursuing a hobby I enjoyed, despite being objectively terrible at it. The instructor, Ms. Jenkins, an older woman, had a philosophy I appreciated: art isn't about being good. It's about expressing yourself and enjoying the process. My paintings were, honestly, bad. Colors that clashed, proportions that were off, techniques I couldn't master. But creating them made me happy. Choosing colors, deciding what to paint, allowing myself to make something imperfect just for the pure joy of it. It felt like reclaiming parts of myself I'd suppressed for years. Ethan, my junior analyst, asked to see my work one day after overhearing me mention the class. I showed him a painting of my dog, Jasper, sitting in a field. The proportions were slightly wrong, but the colors were vibrant. "I love this," he said, surprising me. "It's got personality. You can tell someone made this because they wanted to, not because they were trying to prove anything." His words perfectly captured what I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. My whole life, I'd been trying to prove I was worthy, valuable, deserving of basic love. These paintings existed simply because I enjoyed making them. No deeper purpose, no validation seeking, just creation for its own sake. The year ended quietly. I spent New Year's Eve at Ashley's party, surrounded by the book club women and their partners. At midnight, we toasted new beginnings and letting go of what no longer served us. "To choosing ourselves," Brenda said, raising her glass. We all drank to that. Then, Mom had a stroke. Eleanor called, her voice gentle but firm. "It's real this time. I'm at the hospital with her. Your father is here. Olivia is flying in tomorrow. I thought you should know, but I'll understand if you don't come." "How bad?" "Serious, but stable. She'll need rehabilitation. Months of it, probably. Doctors say she'll recover most function if she does the work." I thanked Eleanor and ended the call. Then I sat on my couch for 2 hours, staring at the wall, trying to decipher what I felt. Anger, definitely. Sadness, perhaps. Mostly, relief that I felt nothing resembling the guilt they'd undoubtedly expected. I didn't go to the hospital. Olivia sent a text the next day. Her first direct message since that "hope you die alone" comment. "Mom had a stroke and you can't even visit. You really are heartless. Dad was right about you." I blocked her number. 3 weeks later, the bills started arriving at my apartment. Medical invoices addressed to me, even though my name wasn't on Mom's insurance or treatment paperwork. Someone had given the hospital my information and claimed I'd agreed to be financially responsible. Adam made 3 phone calls and sorted it within 48 hours. The hospital apologized, removed my information, and he sent another letter to my parents' address, this one outlining potential criminal fraud charges if they continued attempting to obligate me without consent. More silence followed. I threw myself into work. The Brennan account expanded into 3 more projects. Laura promoted me to senior analyst with a substantial raise. I bought a condo in a better neighborhood and adopted Jasper, a 3-year-old mixed breed, from a shelter, surrendered by owners who didn't have time. I changed my phone number, giving it only to Eleanor. I stopped checking social media entirely, deleting all my accounts, feeling a lightness the moment they vanished. The detox revealed just how much mental energy I'd wasted maintaining appearances and monitoring what my family said. Without Olivia's passive-aggressive posts about fake family members and Mom's pointed shares about ungrateful children, I found hours of free time I hadn't realized I'd lost. I filled them deliberately. I started learning piano through online tutorials, something I'd wanted since childhood but my parents deemed impractical. The keyboard wasn't fancy, but practicing scales in my living room felt like reclaiming a piece of childhood wonder I'd abandoned, trying to be the daughter they wanted. Work took an interesting turn when Laura approached me about leading a new initiative developing predictive analytics tools. The project meant managing a larger team, interfacing with C-suite executives, and quarterly travel to our Seattle office. 2 years ago, I would have hesitated, worried about family obligations or emergencies. Now, I said yes immediately. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and my own corner office overlooking the city. Ethan, who'd become invaluable, congratulated me with genuine enthusiasm. "You deserve this. You've taught me more about this industry than 4 years of college did." His words reminded me of something Dr. Stone had said, "The people who matter will celebrate your success, not resent it." My family had always treated my achievements as either expected or threatening. Olivia especially had a talent for diminishing anything good that happened to me, twisting my promotions into proof I was all work and no life, or suggesting I'd just kissed up. Being surrounded by genuinely supportive colleagues felt revolutionary. The new role brought unexpected challenges. One executive, Robert, had a management style that uncomfortably mirrored my father's. He expected people to read his mind, grew frustrated with clarifying questions, and took credit for successes while blaming his team for failures. Several team members privately expressed their frustration. In the past, I would have stayed silent, worked around him, made myself smaller to avoid conflict. But therapy and distance from my family had given me new tools. I carefully documented Robert's behavior, gathered statements from affected team members, and presented the information to Laura with specific examples and suggested solutions. Laura took it seriously. Robert received management coaching, and 2 of his direct reports were quietly reassigned. The situation gradually improved. Several people thanked me for addressing what they'd tolerated for years. "How did you know he'd actually listen?" Ethan asked after hearing the outcome. "I didn't know," I said. "But I knew staying silent wasn't going to change anything. Sometimes you have to risk conflict to create something better." That philosophy began to extend into my personal life. I'd been casually dating, nothing serious, until I met David at a gallery opening Ashley had dragged me to. He was studying the same abstract piece I was, a chaotic swirl of colors that somehow felt peaceful. "I can't decide if I love this or hate it," he said, noticing me. "Maybe it's both," I suggested. "Sometimes the most interesting things are complicated." We talked for 2 hours, long after Ashley had left with the person she actually came to meet. David was an architect specializing in sustainable design, recently divorced, with a 12-year-old daughter he shared custody of. He'd been in therapy for 3 years, processing his divorce and the complicated relationship with his ex-wife. Our first official date was coffee that bled into dinner, then into walking around downtown, talking until the restaurants started closing. He told me about his daughter, Maya, struggling with the divorce and acting out. I told him, in broad strokes, about cutting off my family. "That must have been hard," David said. "Staying would have been harder." I finally figured out the difference between hard because it's painful and hard because it's wrong. He understood that distinction in a way most people didn't. His own family had complicated dynamics, a mother who never approved of his ex-wife, a brother who borrowed money and never paid it back, a father who walked out when David was 15 and only recently tried to reconnect now that David was successful. We didn't bond over family trauma, exactly, but there was a shared understanding that made conversations easier. Neither of us had to explain why we'd set certain boundaries or were cautious about letting people too close. Dating David felt different. We took things slowly, both wary after being hurt. He met Jasper on our 5th date, bringing treats and spending 20 minutes throwing a ball in the park. Jasper's approval felt significant. My dog had always been a good judge of character. 2 months in, I met Maya, a carefully orchestrated casual meeting at a museum. She was quiet, observant, clearly sizing me up, trying to decide if I was a threat to her dad's affection. I didn't try too hard to win her over, just treated her like a person worthy of respect, not an obstacle. "Your dog is cool," she said, when David showed her pictures of Jasper. "Can I meet him sometime?" "Sure, he loves meeting new people." That simple exchange felt like passing a significant test. David later told me Maya had asked if I seemed nice, a question apparently loaded with meaning, given her reactions to his previous dates. Our relationship progressed naturally. David started staying over some weekends when Maya was with her mom. I met his friends, he met mine, and we settled into comfortable rhythms, shared meals, long conversations, quiet evenings reading in the same room. Sarah noticed the change. "You're in love with him." "Maybe," I admitted. "It's different than I expected. Calmer. Less dramatic." "That's because it's healthy. Healthy love isn't supposed to be a roller coaster. It's supposed to be stable, supportive, genuine. I thought about Olivia and Noah. Their relationship was defined by constant drama, breakups, and grand gestures that never addressed their fundamental incompatibility. My parents seemed to see their own explosive fights and tearful reconciliations as proof of passion, not dysfunction. What David and I had was different. We disagreed sometimes, worked through conflicts with real communication, and respected each other's boundaries. When I said I needed space to process something, he gave it without making it about him. When he shared his anxieties about fatherhood, I listened without trying to fix everything. This was what partnership looked like when two whole individuals chose to share their lives, rather than two broken people trying to complete each other. The legal threats must have worked because no one from my family attempted contact again. Eleanor sent occasional email updates. Mom's recovery was slow, Dad had retired. Olivia and Noah divorced, reconciled, then divorced again. Their kids were teenagers now, navigating the chaos their parents created. I felt sympathy for them, understanding what it meant to grow up where love had conditions and manipulation was normal. But I couldn't help them. It wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was to Jasper, to David, to my team at work, to the life I built from scratch after walking away from people who wanted to tear me down. Some nights, I still thought about that text, "Hope you die alone, you pathetic loser." And the phone call hours later, demanding $35,000 or my sister would die. The sheer audacity of it still amazed me. Their absolute confidence that I would comply, that I could be manipulated through manufactured crisis and guilt. They'd been wrong about me. Dead wrong. I didn't die alone. I lived, surrounded by people who genuinely cared, who showed up without expecting payment, who treated kindness as something freely given, not a transaction. The family I chose was better than the one I'd been born into. That simple truth took me 34 years to accept, but once I did, everything else fell into place. Jasper nudged my hand, pulling me back to the present. David was making dinner in the kitchen, humming a tune I couldn't quite hear. Outside, city lights flickered on as evening settled in. My phone sat on the coffee table, silent and peaceful. No demands, no guilt trips, no manufactured emergencies. Just silence. Beautiful, hard-won silence. I had chosen myself over people who saw me as a resource. I'd made peace with being called cruel by those who'd shown me cruelty my entire life. I'd walked away from the role they'd assigned me, the responsible one, the backup plan, the person who would always sacrifice herself for a family that never sacrificed anything for her. The guilt they tried to weaponize had turned out to be nothing more than smoke. Insubstantial. Easily dispersed once I stopped breathing it in. I scratched Jasper's ears and smiled. Freedom. I'd learned it sometimes required letting people think the worst of you. Required accepting that some relationships couldn't be saved because they'd never been real. My phone stayed silent. The evening stayed peaceful. My life stayed mine. And somewhere out there, Olivia probably still thought I was pathetic and heartless, dying alone in my bitterness. She couldn't have been more wrong. But I'd stopped caring what she thought a long, long time ago. Have you ever had to choose yourself, even when it felt like betraying the people you were supposed to love?